Now we'll move on to what we can do after importing the data. So, once we import the dataset, what should we do? I think I want to check if it is correctly loaded. To do this, we can simply use summary function. So let me just run this summary function and see what we can get. Remember that in this sample txt file, we had 9 columns and 7,000 something rows. And then they're all different numbers inside it. So let's look. So the summary function returns you the summary of each columns. See here, A, B, C. These are all the column names. And let's just look at what we have in I column. This means that you have the minimum value that's contained in the column I is 0. And also maximum is 1,689. There's one NA. NA is not available. And you can see here the median is 139 and no, mean is 139.5 and median is 0. So summary function just gives you a very good overview of your data set. So there's actually no need to learn other functions. Not really. Think about when you're running a code and you want to call the number of rows, the number of columns, the median or mean of the column. In that case, we just directly want to return this one number rather than just using this bulk of summary result. So let's start with how to check the number of rows. N row stands for the number of rows. So when we run this, it will return 7,292, which is exactly same as this number. Also, why don't we go back to the sample CSV data rather than this bulky sample txt data? So let's see what we have in sample CSV data for short. So this was just one column data set with the column name X. And then I want to check what's the maximum value of this data set. Then I can use maximum function. See? It says the maximum value that I have in this data set is 1. What about the minimum? The minimum is 0. But then I'm kind of curious if this data set is composed of only 1 and zeros, or if it is some decimal values between 0 and 1. For example, it could be 0, 0.2, 0.5, and 1, or it could be just ones and zeros. To do that, we can use this function called unique. Let's just run this and see what it returns. Ta-da! It shows 0 and 1. What does it mean? It means that in the column X, there are only 2 unique values, which are 0 and 1. And a little more about that is like 0 happens in the first row for the first time, and then 1 happens in the 6th row for the first time. You want to go and check if I'm right? Let's see here. So there are 5 zeros. So the first 0 happened in the first row, so that's why this is 1. And the first 1 happened in the 6th row, so this is 6. Let's go back. So that was it. And what else we can do? Maybe we can go back to the complex data set and then see what we can do. Let's see here, text, sample txt data. I kind of want to look at maybe column E. So this is how you can call the column of the data frame. You put the name of the data frame here, and then you use this $sign to call your column, and then you put the column name here. So I put sample txt data frame column E into the unique function. Let's see what happens. Ta-da! It has so many unique data points, right? But then this time it is a little bit trickier as compared to the former example because there are so many numbers. What we can do in this case is that we can sort out this number of vectors in an increasing sequence. Let's see what it does when we do this. Yes, so it's now nicely sorted from 0 to 360, and this is another way that we can check the maximum and minimum values. And I want to know how many unique data values that we have in this column. In that case, we can just count the number of entries in this vector, right? In that case, we can use this length function. Then when I run this, it returns 78. So we have 78 data points in this sort unique data result, meaning that we have 78 different values that's contained in this column. See, you can spot what I've done here. So I just put the unique function into the sort function. Also here, I just put unique function into the length function. I can do this not because of this, not because this is a unique characteristic of this unique function, no pun intended, but because you can use any function as you can replace this this code of calling this function as the result of this function. What I mean is, so when you run this code, you get this data as a return, right? This is the result of this unique function. And then if I put this unique function inside another function, that means that I'm going to put this result of this function into this function. So this is how it works. Now, here comes the most important function that you will learn in this video. It is the which function. What do you think this function, this which function, will return when we run this? Let's just look at it. Inside the parentheses, it seems like it has a logic. So it recalled this E column, and then it compared it with the number 0. Seems like it's checking if the data point is equal to 0 or not. Let's see what it returns when we run this code. It returns 1 and 2. What does this mean? You guys have any idea? I guess this 1 and 2 means that we have some data points that has this value 0. What does this mean? Maybe we can just open up this sample txt dataset and look at the column E. Here. In E, I just sorted it in an increasing order, but yeah, so this is how it looks when you open up, right? In E, I see zeros on top of the column. I think maybe this 1 and 2 is this 1 and 2? Maybe it refers to the row numbers of the data point that satisfies this logic. Is it? Maybe we can check by looking at the column F. Let's try with the same thing and change E to the F. It also returns 1 and 2, right? Sample txt, it's 1 and 2. It seems like our assumption is correct. How can we actually check this? Actually, because we already checked the unique data points of column E, we know that 0 is the minimum value. And then by just clicking this, you can sort the numbers in column E in an increasing order or a decreasing order. Just a tip. So because we sorted this column in an increasing order, it means that there will be no zeros after this point, right? We only have 2 zeros, and the row numbers of the 2 points are 1 and 2. So I guess we're right. So which function returns the data points that satisfies this logic inside the parenthesis using its row numbers? But then, how can we check if there's how can you check how many data points we have that satisfies this logic? This case we can also using the length function. I'll run this code. We'll see. This is very obvious because now we know what this length function does, because which function can be replaced by this vector, and then if you just think about the length of this vector, it's obviously 2, right? So now we learned which function, and then we can go to the next chapter. But just before we go to the manipulation section, I'll teach you one little thing. These functions called isMatrix or isDataFrame checks if the data frame or if the data you have inside the parentheses is a matrix or a data frame. So if we run this, sample CSV data is not a matrix because it's false. But then if we run this, it is true that this is data frame. This is how we can use isDataFrame and isMatrix function.